Two Deer is a fascinating short story by Count Leo Tolstoy, a famous Russian writer. There is a tiny little kingdom called Monaco near the borders of France and Italy. There are only about 7,000 inhabitants in Monaco. The kingdom is so small that if all the land in the kingdom were divided among its inhabitants, there would not be even an acre of land for each inhabitant. But this toy kingdom has a real kinglet, and like any other real king, he lives in a palace with courtiers, ministers, a bishop, generals, and an army of only 60 men in all. The king lives by collecting taxes from the people. There are taxes on tobacco, wine, and spirits, and a poll tax too. The king had hit upon a new source of revenue. It came from a gaming house where people play roulette. The keeper of the gaming house got a percentage of the turnover irrespective of whether people lost or won. Out of his profits, the gaming housekeeper paid a large sum to the kinglet. Presently, it is the only gaming house that is left untouched by the rulers in Europe. There were many such gaming houses run by German sovereigns, but some years ago they were forbidden to do so. The rulers stopped such gaming houses because they did a great deal of harm to the people. Many a time, it so happened that a man would come and try his luck, then he would risk all he had and lose it. He would finally drown or shoot himself. However, there was no one to stop the Prince of Monaco, and he remained with a monopoly of the business. So now, whoever wants to gamble goes to Monaco, and the prince gains a lot of money this way. The Prince of Monaco knows that earning revenue this way is a dirty business, but he feels helpless because he has to live luxuriously. Though the kinglet knows that collecting taxes on people's drinks and tobacco is bad, yet he is collecting taxes and holds his court with all the ceremony of a real king. He rewards, sentences, and pardons. He also has his reviews, councils, laws, and courts of justice just like other kings, but only on a smaller scale. In the next part of the story, we see the moral conflict faced by the prince and his people. A murder was committed in the Prince of Monaco's domains. The people of Monaco were peaceable, and such a thing had not happened before. The criminal was tried according to the procedures of law. The lawyers argued, and the judges finally decreed that the criminal be executed as directed by the law. The prince read out the sentence, confirmed it, and ordered the execution of the criminal. There arose a problem in the execution of the king's order. Monaco was a toy kingdom, and it did not have either a guillotine for cutting heads off or an executioner. The ministers sent a letter of inquiry to the French government, asking whether they could lend them a machine and an expert to cut off the criminal's head and also inform the cost involved in it. They received a reply a week later informing them that the French government would lend them a machine and an expert as well, and it would cost 16,000 francs. The king felt that 16,000 francs was a lot of money, and it was utterly a waste of money to spend so much on beheading a wretched criminal. The king called a council and asked them their suggestion. It was decided to send a similar inquiry to the King of Italy, and they received a prompt reply. The Italian government informed them that they would supply both a machine and an expert for 12,000 francs including traveling expenses. Though the price quoted by the King of Italy was cheaper than that of the French government, still the price was too much for a toy kingdom like theirs. The council asked the general of the army to find a soldier who would be ready to cut off a man's head. But the soldiers did not agree to do it because they had not been taught how to behead a criminal. The king and the ministers met again and discussed the matter thoroughly. Finally, they concluded that the best thing to do was to alter the death sentence to one of imprisonment for life. This way it would enable the prince to show his mercy, and it would also be cheaper. The prince agreed to this, and so the matter was arranged accordingly. Though there was no suitable prison for a man sentenced to life, they managed to find a place that would serve as a prison and put the criminal in it. They also placed a guard to watch over him and to fetch criminals food from the palace kitchen. This way, they kept the prisoner imprisoned for more than a year. One day, while the kinglet was examining the account of his income and expenditure, the new item of expenditure caught his eye. The whole arrangement of keeping a guard to watch over the criminal and feeding the criminal cost more than 600 francs a year. He got worried, and so he summoned his ministers and urged them to find some cheaper way of dealing with the criminal. The ministers again met and discussed ways of reducing the expenditure. Finally, they concluded to dismiss the guard and waited for the criminal to run away. All that happened was that at dinner time the criminal came out, and not finding his guard, he went to the prince's kitchen to fetch his own dinner. He took what was given to him, returned to the prison, shut the door on himself, and stayed inside. Next day the same thing occurred. He went for the food at the proper time, but as for running away, he did not show any sign of it. The Minister of Justice decided to tell him straight and ask the reason for his action. The criminal replied that, he had nowhere to go, and complained that they have ruined his character by imprisonment and people will turn their back on him, also told them that they have treated him badly by not taking one proper decision on his execution, and also complained that he alone had to fetch his own food and guard was dismissed. He accused them of not properly taking care of him. He also told them that he had become lazy and had forgotten to work, so they like it or not he would not go away. At the end, to get rid of the criminal, they offered him 600 francs pension. The criminal agreed to undertake it only if they pay it regularly. On that condition he was willing to go. So the matter was settled. He received 1/3 of his annuity in advance, and left the king's dominions. He emigrated to only a quarter of an hour by rail and settled just across the frontier. He bought a bit of land, started market gardening. He always withdrew his pension on time and went to gambling tables, stakes 2 or 3 francs, sometimes wins and sometimes loses, and returned home. He lives comfortably and well.